Good morning, everyone. It is Sunday, the 18th of September. Welcome back to the D3D4 football podcast dedicated to all things Leagues 1 and 2. There's a chance we could have a bit of a long episode today. Normally when I put the running order together for these, the League 1 and 2, I tend to select a few from each league that we kind of briefly summarise at the end to save time. And normally these are 0-0 draws, low-scoring draws, games that generally carry quite few major talking points. It's been difficult this week, to be honest. There aren't many of those this weekend. There's been a lot of games that I really want to get talking about, certainly. And a good thing for us is that there are plenty of us here to talk about them this time. It is myself, Edward Walker, alongside David Jenkin, Chris Stringer, and a special guest, Gabriel Sutton. David, first of all, how's your weekend been? I think I might know what you're about to say here.
It could have been better.
Yeah.
That's my phrase. My midweek was good.
Scored a goal?
I know.
Scored a goal?
I know. What a week it's been. Roller coaster of emotion. Scored one goal in over 10 hours of football and then get dominated and pressed to crap at home. Yay!
Life of a Gillingham fan. Chris, how about yourself?
Yeah, not too bad. We're out celebrating my friend passing his PhD on Friday and then went to Oldham yesterday. John Sheridan's send-off and we got a good win. So, yeah, I'm in a good
Charlie
mood.
Wellens got the winner, didn't he?
He did, yeah. And
Awesome.
there was this sort of strange question of, is this the first time that a father and son have scored for the same team under the same manager?
Oh, God, that's entirely possible, isn't it?
Yeah.
I'd never really thought about that. But
Bonkers,
Sheridan,
isn't it? The resurrection, yeah.
When's he back? So is this it now with him?
He has formally retired now.
Okay.
I think he'd sort of said in previous podcasts, like he did in Under the Cosh, where he'd sort of said, like, he'd felt a little bit alienated by aspects of modern management and that kind of thing. So it's not a huge surprise, but what a legend for Oldham Athletic, and wish him all the best in his retirement.
Yeah, for sure. He sort of came out of retirement last season for us as a sort of, special favour, so it was no surprise.
Of course, and the voice you heard there is the voice of Gabriel Sutton. Gabe, how are we doing?
I'm very well, thanks, Ed. A bit of a long journey to Forest Green yesterday.
Yeah, you and me both. Yeah.
Yeah, I ended up getting up at 5 o'clock in the morning because I wanted to get an early train because I didn't want to get one of those ones that are like absolutely crammed.
There is no worse ground in the EFL for getting by train than that one.
Oh my goodness.
Horrible.
Yeah, and then I ended up waiting at like a bus stop for a bus that didn't come for like an hour after the game. So that wasn't very fun. I'm glad to be back home now and looking forward to chatting about League 1 and 2 with you today.
Absolutely. Reminder before we get going, this podcast is in partnership with The Big Step, which tackles football's relationship with gambling. There is an excessive presence of gambling adverts within football, and The Big Step continue to do great work to raise awareness about the dangers of gambling and the impact it can have on so many people's lives. Big thank you as well to all our Patreon members whose input helps to keep this podcast running, this website running, keep D3D4 ticking along as general. We really do appreciate your input. Let's get going, and we'll begin with the world's best third tier.
League 1.
Now, League 1, I officially declared a mouth-watering weekend. We had the top four all in action against each other. We will get into those games. But, David, we've got to start at the men with the highest scoring game of the weekend. Bristol Rovers 3, Lincoln City 6.
Sounds like a FIFA scoreline, doesn't it? When
it
you
does.
think of video games. Yeah. It's worth prefixing this one, really, with Barton's pre-match press conference as well. Coming out with comments such as Lincoln being a long ball team that sucks teams in and hits long balls over the top. And I think he may be he may have expected a good game, but I'm not quite sure he expected this. Lincoln pulling ahead in this one with Jack Diamond playing Ben House in for the opener. Glenn Whelan gave away a penalty, which was slotted home by Diamond. So a goal and assist already in this game, ends up with a hat-trick. Bristol Rovers capitalising on a defensive error from Aaron Collins to pull one back for the Gas, but the Imps would capitalise on a Gas defensive mix-up not too long after to play Jack Diamond in for a second. There is so much happening in this game because then Matty Virtue...
It became a bit like a basketball game, didn't it? Really?
Absolutely did,
End to end.
Yeah, Matty Virtue opened up the second half. He had about 1 million attempts at shooting before he eventually got one that went in the back of the net. Diamond, when they go on to score his hat-trick after the Bristol Rovers defence gave him far too much space and time in the box. Like, when a man's already on a brace, you cannot stand off him that much. Ryan Loft got a goal back for Bristol Rovers, but cancelled out 2 minutes later by Ben House to make it 6-2. And Aaron Collins would probably get, arguably for me, one of the goals of the day with an amazing defence splitting ball from Paul Coots into Aaron Collins for 6-3. But yeah, an absolutely mental day. And certainly I imagine Joey Barton is ruining those comments pre-match.
I liked his comments pre-game that said it could have been 7-7. He reckoned it was that open a game. By the sounds of it, if Bristol Rovers had got 7, Lincoln would have got 9. Is the way it sounds like to me. I mean, Bristol Rovers were hit by some injuries. They had Glenn Whelan playing in the back line.
Right.
Yeah, it was certainly not an ideal setup. And, you know, I think a lot of fans certainly found the way that Barton set up to be questionable, let's say. But, you know, when you've got injuries and when you've got key players that are out, there's only so much you can do. So, yeah, Glenn Whelan giving away a penalty, but it's not his position. So, you know, to sort of kind of come up with some makeshift players last minute really is it's the least you can expect to ship a few goals, really, isn't it?
Yeah, not going to Bristol Rovers without a win since the 13th of August. They've dropped down to the relegation zone now. Started leaking some goals, certainly. But Lincoln, David, Jack Diamond, I mean, when that signing was announced, I got excited about it, knowing what he did at Harrogate Town. And I think he's really shown everyone here exactly what he can do.
Yeah, no, absolutely. He was phenomenal in this game. Like, there's good, and then there's this. Like, not only did he score a hat-trick, but he got an assist as well and was just present in everything that happened in this game. I don't think there was a move that Lincoln had that he wasn't either mainly involved in or involved in some sort of way. So that really just shows you how important he's becoming to this Lincoln side.
How do you assess the Imps, Gab, at the start of the season? Because I think there was quite mixed opinion all around, really, about how the Imps were there this season. They're up to 8th at the moment.
They are, yeah. It's been a really productive run for Mark Kennedy's side. A great week for them. Obviously, beating Derby quite recently as well. I think the key to it really has been Jack Diamond because, and I think it was David who mentioned it there that. He had a fantastic impact at Harrogate Town, was one of the best wingers in League Two last season at his best. He seems to have made a real step up. He's just such a bright, wide forward. And then Matty Virtue as well coming into midfield. He's made a real impact as well. Interesting to know as well that they've got Ben House, who's at Reading as a youngster, but he's quite a big centre forward, but at the same time he's quite good with the ball at his feet. He's sometimes been played in midfield, so I imagine that gives Mark Kennedy that flexibility to then get Diamond and Garrick into goal scoring positions very quickly. And then Regan Poole is a centre back I really like as well. So it's looking up for the Imps, I think. Yeah,
certainly, and what a win for Lincoln away from home. I don't think you get 6 on the road very often, certainly, and that's a magnificent result for them at the Memorial Stadium. Right, the big talking points ahead of this weekend were the games right up at the top of League One. We had second playing third, Thirst away at fourth. We also had fifth against seventh as well, which we'll get onto later. Chris, let's talk about what's called the Docklands Derby. I'm not sure fans really agree that it's a derby, but it is given that tag. Portsmouth 2, Plymouth Argyle 2.
Yeah, not quite a derby from what I can gather from a friend that's a Portsmouth fan. They're very much more focused on Southampton, and I think Plymouth on, is it Exeter there?
Yeah, it definitely will be.
Their big one. But yeah, I mean, you can sort of safely bet your money on what the score is going to be when these two play each other. It's they've played each other 13 times. 6 times out of that it's ended 2-2, and 4 of the last 5 times it's ended 2-2. It's really bonkers, and it's 2 well matched sides as you see from the league table. You know, early chance disallowed for an offside from Plymouth, and then, you know, Pompey down the other end, going close after 33 minutes, where Sean Waggett had a sort of strangely acrobatic twisting in a way that I didn't think was humanly possible, and somehow get into the ball, and that was cleared off the line. And
maybe
then
it's taking inspiration for your cat, Chris.
Yeah, for sure.
You climbing the curtains.
And then Karoma, who we mentioned a couple of weeks ago, has been a really fantastic signing for Portsmouth.
By the way,
came out with an absolute beauty. 41 minutes, and he's ended up with the ball on the edge of the area, and just, I mean, I've put it down as a screamer, but I mean that sort of doesn't do it justice, because it's far more technically wonderful than that. Just curling into the top corner seemed to take an age to end up there. And then, we had some goals in quick succession for Argyle in the second half. Raggett having a bit of a bonkers own goal. It was quite an impressive header that ended up in his own goal. And then shortly after, Ennis put Argyle into the lead. And then it was really down to the last minute where Pompey managed to get away with a draw, but surely feeling with a win. There was a bit of a strange push about in the penalty area where Galloway was sent off, and I'm not entirely sure what has happened, but it sounds like a silly second yellow card. And then short throwing comes in when they were expecting a long throw in, Peacher a cross in, and headed home by Hackett Fairchild. It was a pretty exciting game, I think it's fair to say. Plenty
of drama. Portsmouth still maintain their unbeaten record with that late draw, and they just continue their super impressive start to the season, as do Plymouth Argyle, really. I watched Portsmouth on Tuesday down at Burton. They won 2-0. They did a really good performance, and I think Marlon Pack, as you mentioned there, is really so integral to it. He holds this really disciplined role in the centre of midfield, where he's still decent in possession as well. And what it does is allows Tommy Lowry, his midfield partner, to be a lot more expressive, provide support, whether it's to Owen Dale out on the right, or to Josh Karoma out on the left, or whoever plays out on the left, or up to the front line as well. It's interesting to me that they're playing two natural left backs at the moment. They've got Clark Robertson out on the left, they've got Conor Ogilvie out on the right. To be honest, they're two players you want on the pitch at the same time, but they're both left backs, and I think maybe that wide support down the right isn't quite the same there with Ogilvie, because he does want to get on his left quite a lot.
You're right, but what it does do is it allows the sort of in-swinging cross, because they play quite attacking football, so they're quite often in the second half of the pitch. So it can be interesting to have a left-footed player on the right-hand side. It sort of depends how you use him, but I agree they're not quite getting the most out of Ogilvie.
Well, I think they have some decent right-back options. It's curious that it's just a bit unfortunate that really you want to play Robertson and Ogilvie both together, but they both really want to be on the left-hand side.
Yeah, it's a challenge.
Right, we'll take him back.
I was a bit disappointed because I was supposed to see Portsmouth play down at Barnsley last week. For obvious reasons, that was called off. Yeah. But I'm hoping to get down to that. I don't know when it's been rearranged for. But I'd like to
I can give to Portsmouth's front line as well. Dane Scarlett and Colby Bishop. We've known what it's about for a long time, really, after his time with Accrington and moving across to Portsmouth. Dane Scarlett's going to be some player. I'm convinced by it. He's 18 years old.
Sure.
He's part of the England team that won the under-19 Euros in the summer just gone as well, on loan from Tottenham. Had a sensational start for them. They've got some ruthless finishers up top, Portsmouth, even from the bench with young Rico Hackett Fairchild as well. They've got the equaliser here and maintains their unbeaten start. David, there's another team that's maintained their unbeaten start as well, Ipswich Town. They got a 2-2 draw at Hillsborough against Sheffield Wednesday.
They did, in a game which, if you look at it from just sort of like the first half, looked like Ipswich were going to absolutely run away with this. I mean, it opened up with, the only way I can describe this is George Edmondson with a Son Heung-min-esque run, just run straight through the middle. And it was just beautiful to see a centre back just dance through the midfield. He just laid off the ball to Caden Jackson, who slotted it across the keeper and into the bottom corner. A bit unfortunate for Sheffield Wednesday, with Dominic Afora doubling Ipswich Town's lead, following a bit of miscommunication at the back, missed header, kind of goes in off him into the net. But yeah, I mean, you could probably have assumed that Ipswich were going to have, I think it's a third straight 2-0 victory in this one, but Sheffield Wednesday definitely weren't out of this one yet. 75 minutes on the clock, seemed like a move straight from the training ground. Ball laid off to Marvin Johnson from the free kick, looping ball over. George Byers puts it straight in at the far post. And if it wasn't already enough that they'd scored one, they would go on to score another. 1 minute from the 90. Comeback was complete as Reece James found Michael Smith in the box to rescue a point for the Owls. Yeah, certainly something that, for me, probably the right result on the balance of things, probably the right result. But I think Ipswich will definitely feel very hard done by. But
sorry. Go.
No, go.
Well, I was just going to jump in on that and say I think Ipswich might feel hard done by because they had that 2-goal lead, but also I think if you were a Sheffield Wednesday point of view, you look at how the game changed potentially from Lee Gregory coming on 57 minutes and Alex Mighton on 71. The one thing, and I don't know what any of you lot felt about this, about Sheffield Wednesday's squad before the season, is Sheffield Wednesday, they didn't have enough raw pace. But I think with Alex Mighton, he's someone who's just so quick, he's so direct, he loves to take people on. I'm not surprised that he had a massive impact on this game and how it's kind of that sort of changed the dynamics of it. And I just wonder whether Mighton is going to maybe start a few more games in future and try and, Darren Moore can really see if he can impact games from the outset, because it looked like that was really the turning point for the Owls.
Yeah, the depth is certainly impressive at Wednesday. I'd probably say similar about Malik Wilkes from my experience of him as well, as someone who could do that too.
Yeah, possibly, and maybe Josh Windass to an extent, but I just think Alex Mighton is just such an explosive ball carrier. He can just be, and I'm going to be honest, I don't think Sheffield Wednesday are like a brilliantly coached side in terms of the coordinations of patterns of play. I think Barry Bannon's obviously a brilliant player, but there is that reliance on individualism, and I think if you are going to be that, you do need like one or two players who are really direct and take people on, and I think Mighton's a game changer in that sense.
Certainly. Well, the top four played each other this weekend. None of them changed positions, and they've all got a point more. Ipswich and Portsmouth maintaining their unbeaten starts to the campaign for them. Over to Cambridge. Cambridge United 0, Barnsley 3. I just want to quickly start by mentioning a personal brain thought that I had, which involved Cambridge during the week, and I don't know if I should be honest on this, but I'm going to anyway.
Was it just one brain fart, Ed, or
this was you'll like this one, Gab. You'll like this one. I was checking through the halftime scores on Tuesday. Cambridge were away at Cheltenham. I think you were at that game, weren't you, Gab?
I was, yeah.
Yeah. I saw that Cambridge were winning 1-0 at half time, and it said that Cambridge's goal scorer was A. May, and I thought, huh? How does A. May score a goal to Cambridge when he plays for Cheltenham? And I'd completely forgotten that Adam May exists. So apologies to him for that. I didn't mean to get you wrong, Adam. That was a cracking goal you scored as well in midweek, by the way. But I thought you were Alfie. I've got to be honest about that. Sorry about that. But of course, Cambridge ultimately losing that game in midweek and ended up losing this one as well. After a chance that James Broughton hit the post, Barnsley got the lead through Devante Cole with a great pass through from Liam Kitching. There was an injury to Barnsley's goalkeeper Brad Collins that meant he was off just before the hour. He was replaced in goal by a young Kiwi called Jamie Searle as well. Barnsley actually ended up going down to 10 men, a second yellow to Liam Kitching after a tangle with Harvey Nibbs. But they kept on building up on their lead. Subs Josh Benson and James Norwood combined, setting up Robbie Cundy for a looping header that went to the net. He used to play for Cambridge, of course. And Barnsley would wrap up the points through their sub James Norwood to record an excellent 3-0 win on the road. Cambridge had a 100% record at the Abbey in League One this season heading into this game, and that has gone in quite some fashion, really. For Barnsley, it's another eye-catching result away from home that they picked up just this month alone. They're on a run of 4 unbeaten now in League One with 2 home draws and 2 away wins, which they've earned clean sheets in on both occasions. Those 2 away wins have come at Hillsborough and the Abbey Stadium, which certainly, as far as I'm concerned, is 2 very impressive places to get them. And even more impressive to me today is scoring 2 further goals despite going down to 10 men after the 68th minute. They're up into the playoff places now after this victory. I've taken a real interest in how Duff has started setting up his front line during Tykes matches. He's got a consistent starting trio during the recent league games, which consists of Devante Cole, Jack Aitchison and Luke Thomas. The setup of that trio can vary a bit through games. Sometimes Aitchison gets deployed as a strike partner to Devante Cole. Sometimes he gets moved back into an attacking midfield position, which I know he can be quite comfortable with, and he plays alongside Luke Thomas, and you have Devante Cole leading the line solo. Devante Cole is quite an interesting one for me, Gab, and I'd like your thoughts on this as well. I've never really considered him a prolific goal scorer. I think when I look back through his career, there's a couple of occasions where he's hit double figures during a single season, one being with Motherwell 2 seasons ago, and another being further back with Fleetwood Town during the first half of 17-18. But being part of this Michael Duff front line is working well for him at the minute. He's down the net in both of Barnsley's last 2 away wins.
Yeah, it's an interesting one, isn't it, Ed? Because I think before the season, Barnsley fans were absolutely clamouring for the club to sign a striker, and the common opinion is they don't have enough depth to play in their squad up top. But actually, Michael Duff played a sort of 3-5-2 at Cheltenham. I think what we're seeing at Barnsley at certain times is, yeah, maybe sometimes a 3-4-1-2, but actually at Cambridge it was a 3-4-2-1, and kind of there's a bit of flexibility really when it comes to Jack Aitchison, because although he has played up top at times, he's not an out and out centre forward. So Michael Duff has made it work in that sense at times. And then I think with Devante Cole, he sort of caught a bit of form unexpectedly maybe, and I think when you've got a great manager, you do get that. You do get one or two players that you aren't expecting to have a brilliant season but end up being a lot better. And I think if they can get keep Devante Cole in form, and get James Norwood coming off the bench and contributing things, maybe Barnsley will be okay for goals. And I think their midfield has got to be the strong point, because they've got Herbie Kane in there. Matty Wolfs, I know, is a really highly rated youngster. Josh Benson's back fit. He made the bench, got 15 minutes. They've also got Luke O'Connell, who didn't even get in the matchday squad at Cambridge, and they won 3-0 at a team that was in sixth by kickoff. So I think that's a positive day for Barnsley after obviously very recently winning 2-0 at Sheffield Wednesday, which was a great result for them, and drawing 1-1 with Port Vale.
Yeah, this variation between a 3-4-1-2 and a 3-4-2-1 that Duff's using is looking their successful ones right now, and I think Barden needs to be kept an eye on as the season goes. They've got Charlton Athletic at home next Saturday. That should be quite a fun one to monitor. I think that could be a good game. Gab, you were at the New Lawn yesterday. Can you tell us about how Forest Green Rovers 1, Morecambe 2 went?
So I feel quite torn about this one, because when a team wins it late on and they've had the better chances, and it was a dramatic win, it was a crucial victory as it was for Morecambe, and you tweet after the game that maybe in some respects a draw might have been a fair result, that gets a bit of backlash, because I totally understand that, because I think if you're a Morecambe fan, and I'd probably feel the same if it was my team, you'd think, hang on, we created much the better chances in the first half, which Morecambe did. I think in transition, they got the ball to Cole Stockton's chest, to his feet. They got Kieran Phillips, who was, by the way, outstanding in that first half. He was running off Cole Stockton. And then they got the midfielders, Jake Taylor's into the game, and players like that, Jensen Weir, Liam Shaw on loan from Celtic. They all had shots at goal off the back of that. Even Donald Love, the right wing back, popped up in the box very early on. So Morecambe found that balance between having a really good defensive structure and still being able to get players in the box at key moments. So I think loads of encouragement to take from Derek Adams. I didn't look at it, though, as an awful performance from Forest Green Rovers. I think that they had a lot of the territory. I think they entered the final third a lot with the ball. So you could see what they were trying to do. I think so there were some patterns of play. I just think what we saw from Forest Green was they were trying some of these sort of triangle passing sequences. And what you'd find is that the first couple of passes would go as they had hoped, but then it was the third ball that was maybe missing a little bit. And I think maybe Ian Birchnell alluded to that in his interview, that maybe elements of the movement wasn't quite there, parts of the sharpness. But I didn't look at it and say Forest Green were absolutely miles off. And I think it's only a small improvement that will be needed for them in order for them to turn that into chances and goals. So I don't think it's the end of the world for Forest Green, but at the same time, I don't begrudge Morecambe the win, because they defended brilliantly, they protected their box brilliantly, and it was an absolutely vital result for them. And they created the chances to say they probably deserved it in some respects as well.
Yeah, vital to them. They've been waiting to that first league win, and they pulled it off here with a late win at Forest Green Rovers. Now, heading into this weekend, there were two teams in League One that had yet to win a league game. There are now 0 teams that are yet to win a league game, and you can't see my smile, but it's there, trust me, because Burton Albion went and won 2-0 down at Exeter City on Saturday. Now, because we didn't have any action last weekend because of games being postponed through the passing of Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II. We therefore didn't have a podcast last weekend, so this is the first opportunity we have to talk about the latest managerial change that's happened in D3D4. It stems back to Monday the 5th of September, where 2 days after Burton's 6th defeat in 7 games, Jimmy Thorpe Hasselbank announced his resignation as Burton Albion manager. It wasn't a surprise. That support from the Burton fan base had long gone. Neutrals certainly were remained unimpressed by his continuous appearances on Sky Super Sunday less than 24 hours after losing games and keeping Burton bottom of the league. His second spell at the club is over, and the initial understanding from the statement put out was that Dino Mamria, his assistant, was going to take control on a temporary basis. What became very clear from Mamria's first interview, however, is that he had absolutely no intention of being referred to as an interim or a caretaker manager. He was only staying if the job became his, and it duly has become his. Now, Mamria's first 2 games to Burton Albion so far have been a competitive 2-0 defeat to Portsmouth on Tuesday, ultimately seen off by some quality finishes from Portsmouth, and this away win at Exeter City, which was a magnificent performance from every single player in the Burton side. It's clear inside just 2 matches how different this Burton Albion team looks. Dino's favouring a 4-3-3 formation with players in much more comfortable positions than they were under Hasselbank. That 3-man midfield he uses carries a lot of tenacious runners out of possession, especially with the return of Kieran Gilligan into matchday squads as well. It's got Terry Taylor sat at the base, who brings a really good blend of aggression off the ball and composure on it, whether that's in either tight spaces or with time on the ball to pick out people. Burton had an excellent first half at James Park yesterday. There was an effort being made to progress the ball around the pitch as well. Victor Adebayejo alone up top, putting an outstanding display in forward areas, sometimes often isolated up there against the Exeter backline, but did superbly. Exeter's strongest period probably came in the first 15 minutes of the second half. Matt Taylor went through a formation change after he was forced to bring Jonathan Grounds off through injury. Harry Kite got brought on into midfield. They went to a back 4, but Burton got the lead through a goal a little bit after the hour. Ball fell to Deji Oshalaja, who worked it onto his left foot, rolled a shot into the bottom corner. Deji's had quite a lot of criticism for his part in Burton's start to the season under Hasselbank, but yesterday deployed in a very advanced midfield role, probably the furthest forward I've seen him since he's joined the club actually. He was excellent. He brought a really good mix of athleticism, tenacity, a willingness to drift into the channels as well and provide support to the wide players, Davis Keeler-Dunn or Joe Powell, and it was Keeler-Dunn who grabbed a second several minutes later, and it left Burton in a fantastic position. And I'll admit I was still a bit cautious because they've been in leads before and they have thrown them away this season already, so you're always a little bit hesitant, but it was a good start to be. Harry Smith came on up top for Exeter, as did Jack Sparks, and with Harry Smith on the pitch, you knew what was coming. You knew what Exeter were going to try and do, but Burton dug in and held them at bay, with Ben Garrett and Sam Hughes in particular putting in really accomplished defensive displays. It's Burton's first away win since the 29th of January. It's the first away win in the league where they've also had a clean sheet since the 19th of October 2021. It's been almost a year for them. It's all about them stringing these kind of high standard performances together now, because if they do, they'll find themselves back in the mix with the teams above them. I can't lie, I'm a little bit annoyed seeing that Morecambe win yesterday because I thought we'd gone back level with them. But they're still 3 points.
On that actually, Ed. I mean, it's
I'm a bit annoyed about that.
Yeah. It's interesting though, because it looks like the relegation battle in League One has got maybe a little bit, it's still very early days, but it's got a little bit more interesting after Morecambe and Burton winning. And that I think that's what you want. You want it to be very compressed as a neutral, so that you don't quite know what's going to happen from week to week. So I'm glad Morecambe and Burton both won yesterday.
Yeah, it does make things. I mean, Burton still have a bit of a gap between themselves and the teams above. They'll need to string some of these performances and wins together to get back in. But it's good to see that there is something competitive in this team. Exeter were hit by a few injuries yesterday. They were pretty flat, pretty below standards. Disappointing from them, but a great win for Burton Albion, and the first time. And I'll tell you what, there's no better thing than coming back from Devon with 3 points. Long away days. Beautiful feeling.
It's a shame the way it's gone with Hasselbank, and I mean, it was strange when he was appointed in the first place, because I think Dino was hoping for the managerial position then.
Well, Dino coming in as assistant was the reason I had confidence in that turnaround in the first place.
Say.
And Dino's mindset is clear. We're going to galvanise the whole club. We're going to get everything together as a unit. Mm-hmm. This is about the fans and the players being united as one. You could see that in the celebrations yesterday, and that will extend far.
I quite liked him at Oldham actually. He had a few mixed opinions, but he's a passionate bloke, and that can be really good. I imagine, especially in a relegation battle.
Absolutely. We'll see how that goes for him, certainly, but a win for him in his second game as Burton Albion manager. David, Oxford United 1, Milton Keynes Dons 2.
Yeah, toothless from Oxford is really what I can say about this one.
Good summary.
Yeah, before this meeting, I mean, I think it just illustrates it perfectly, the fact that MK Dons had lost all four of their last, well, only 4 meetings at the Kassam. And then yesterday was just, it was a lot of shots from Oxford and not enough. They just weren't clinical. They were getting the shots. They just couldn't put them in the back of the net. Matt Smith opened the scoring after it was deflected by John Mousinho into his own net, which was definitely not the start they would have wanted. Will Grigg then was brought down by Eastwood in the box, converts the penalty, MK Dons doubling their lead. Oxford pulled one back from a set piece with Mousinho countering that own goal in the first half from a Lewis Bates free kick. I mean, this just as I've already said, this just really wasn't Oxford Day at all. They were really wasteful with chances. I mean, credit to MK Dons though, that they did pick up those pockets of space. There was quite a few pockets of space that Oxford were leaving at the back. They were leaving quite open gaps in their defence. So that's certainly something that they might want to work on. But MK Dons just kind of exploited that, and that's really where the kind of penalty decision came from, because Will Grigg just got away and there wasn't really anything else that Eastwood could do other than sort of get himself between him and the goal. Just in general, unfortunately, a very disappointing performance from an Oxford perspective. I wouldn't say I'm particularly worried about them, but I would say that I'm worried about their conversion at the moment, because it's not that they're not getting chances, they're just not putting them away.
Gab, I can kind of understand Oxford's situation now. They're nowhere near full strength. They are hit by injuries. They're having to put unconventional wing-backs out. But MK Dons, what's going on here? Because we had a lot of expectation on them at the start of the season after the campaign they've had last year. But they're at the wrong end of the table at the minute, a lot of people would believe.
They are, and I think they needed that victory yesterday just to lift things a little bit. I think really the difference between the two teams would be that they had a natural pair of wing backs. So MK Dons had Daniel Oyegoke at right wing back, and then Daniel Harvey at left wing back. Whereas if you look at what Oxford had in their wing-back positions, it was James Henry, who's like a veteran midfielder, and then they had Kieran Brown as sort of a left-sided defender, but I'm not sure you'd call him a wing-back.
No, I wouldn't call him a wing-back, no.
No, so I can imagine that might have had an impact on the game. But as David mentioned, I think it was a case of conversion being the issue, because Oxford had more than 3 times more shots than MK Dons. It was just that MK Dons were a bit more clinical when those big moments came, and obviously got it through Matt Smith's goal and Will Grigg's penalty.
How do you explain MK Dons at the start of the season, though? Because up to now they were in a relegation zone before this win yesterday, and we had high expectations. I know you had high expectations of this season as well. We won't talk about that, but what's going on at the minute? Are you able to put your finger on it?
It's such a difficult one, Ed. So maybe in hindsight I was a little bit because there was so much. Well,
we all do it, Gab. Don't worry, we all had expectations. Yeah. Nothing wrong with it.
I think because there was so much trust and faith and goodwill with Liam Sweeting as sporting director, and he was getting praised so much through sort of neutrals on the division for his work. You almost looked at some of the signings that MK Dons had made, and you sort of trusted it a little bit. And I think a lot of them were quite young signings. The majority of them, obviously, they brought Will Grigg in, but the majority were young signings. And I'm just not sure they've got it right. Again, I'm caveat that by saying I'm saying it very much in hindsight. And at the time, I was probably saying, oh, wow, look at Dawson Devoy. He's got some really good reviews in Ireland, and I'm excited by this signing and that signing. But maybe in hindsight, the recruitment wasn't as good, or maybe it's a bit simpler than that, and the players just aren't delivering for whatever reason. It's very difficult to get a proper handle on it without having inside info. But I think the interesting thing is they went for depth, and I saw that as a positive thing because I thought they'd be able to rotate. But maybe they've prioritised depth in certain aspects over having individual quality and replacing some of the best players in the league in Harry Darling and Matt O'Reilly, who they lost in January, and obviously Scott Twine. They lost a little bit of that star quality, and maybe that's affected them more than I imagined.
I was hoping they were going to replace Twine the aggregate, and it doesn't seem to be at the moment.
No, it doesn't, does it?
No, not great, but that is a good win from Kidons against a toothless Oxford that need to get back to full strength, and hopefully we can see something better out of them. I have a lot of editing work to do because Chris has just informed me that I've missed out Port Vale. Sorry, Valiant. Chris, Port Vale 2, Shrewsbury Town 1.
Yeah. Is it fair to call this the Ellis Harrison show?
I think that's fair.
It was a bit of a masterclass from him. I mean, Port Vale, all round, I think were fantastic yesterday. They started really strong. They nearly got an early goal from Mal Benning, who hit the post, I think. It's very, very close. And then great build-up play for their first goal all the way from their own half. Just really finding the space really nicely and catching Shrewsbury out at each turn. And then Shrewsbury, got one back. And this was quite a nice goal as well, actually. I really liked the link-up play between Sadie and Pike. It was a little bit of a back heel from Sadie.
That's what Sadie's about, by the way, him holding off the player. That's what he can do. He's always had phenomenal strength.
Yeah, really, really impressive. And then just this lovely little flick, and then right back in from Pike, who teed up Sadie for a really quite simple finish, but it was a really sort of tasty goal. And then I think, as I say, Port Vale were the better team for most of it, but they took it right down until the 91st minute, where there was this really congested penalty area. Port Vale seemed to have thrown everyone up. Shrewsbury have got everyone back. And, this cross comes in from David Wall, and it's headed home again by Ellis Harrison. I mean, both teams did well, but I think Port Vale have come away deserved winners. And I think that's really positive for them. They're starting to look up, for sure.
I make that 5 goals in 6 games for Ellis Harrison. That's been some signing, Gab.
Yeah, absolutely. And the other one would be Butterworth, the lad on loan from Blackburn Rovers, Daniel Butterworth. He seems to have made a real impact.
Yeah.
Interestingly, I think Vale probably struggled in the first hour at Barnsley in midweek. They made a few I think it was 5 changes that Darryl Clark made that really made a difference in that one. Butterworth was one of the lads that came on and sort of changed that game. And again, he's earned a start, and he's clearly made it count. So that front three of Ellis Harrison, Daniel Butterworth, and now, of course, James Wilson's back fit.
Yeah.
That's potentially a dangerous attacking trio. Trio?
I like trio. Let's make that thing.
Trio, shall we? I mean, they might get a trio if they win a game 3-0, so without attacking trio.
A win at Pride Park, Derby County 2, Wycombe Wanderers 1. Wycombe actually took the lead in this game through who else but Anis Mehmeti. I don't know how much more praise we can put on this guy, really. I thought it was a fantastic goal as well, cutting inside off the left-hand side, drilling in at the near post. But Derby would turn the game around after a couple of opportunities to David McGoldrick and Nathaniel Mendes-Lang. Conor Hourihane grabbed the equaliser with a great goal from outside the box. Now, if you've heard the audio to this equaliser goal from Derby, you can hear in the background that the Pride Park crowd are singing a rendition of God Save the Queen. They've started it in the 70th minute because of 70 years of Her Majesty's reign. Conor Hourihane's shot hits the back of the net immediately after the song finishes. The timing on it is unreal. It's phenomenal. You'll find the video. I think ITV posted the video, actually. It's incredible timing how it ends up happening that way. And Conor Hourihane would actually end up grabbing a second as well. The ball falling to him in the box, and Solly Kaikai the late after the Wycombe that was denied as well, and Derby County got the win. Derby's season has been odd so far, really. They've got a very strong home record, 12 points collected from a possible 15. They're one of 4 sides in League One that have that points tally from the home matches. Plymouth Argyle are the only one with a perfect record in League One, having played just 4 so far at Home Park. Derby haven't scored a goal away from home yet, though. It's been 2 goalless draws and 2 defeats on the road where they've been blanked on both occasions. Their 2-0 loss to Lincoln City midweek was seen as very disappointing, and I imagine there may well have been some fears about a 3rd straight loss in a row when they fell behind to Wycombe 15 minutes into this match. That didn't happen, though. They did turn it round, and they find themselves outside the playoffs by goal difference after 9 games. Start picking up some away goals, which they're well overdue, by the way, because they've had some chances, certainly in those 0-0s. And it could certainly get even better for the Rams. I noticed Wycombe spent a little period rightly in this game with Chris Thorino up top, a natural centre-back, deployed as an emergency striker. maybe says a bit about the lack of forward alternatives at Wycombe's disposal right now. They look a bit below what I thought they were going to be this season. I'm not sure the depth is quite there in forward options for them. Chris, talk to me about Bolton Wanderers 1, Peterborough United 0. This looked an interesting game ahead of it.
Yeah, it was another late goal. There seems to have been a real sort of quite a lot of late goals in League One yesterday. It was an 86th minute winner from Oladapo Afolayan, who really has been fantastic ever since joining Bolton. He really is an exciting young talent. And it was really just sort of a bit of a bad day at the office. But Peterborough, as you say, it looked like a big game going into it. It looked like, two teams that are eyeing up the top half of the table, the playoff spots. And I don't think it quite met what it could have done. It's the fourth win on the bounce for Bolton, so they'll be pleased to have come away with the win. There was a bit of a slow start for them. They had a goal, but then they finally got into it about half an hour in, a goal disallowed in the 30th minute, and then they hit the post right before half time. They were a constant threat against Peterborough, and I think they've come away with the deserved win, but I'm just not entirely sure what happened with Peterborough. They
6 defeats in a row for them in all competitions.
Yeah, exactly, and it's 6 defeats in a row. They never really looked to have sort of turned up yesterday. They had a couple of decent chances, but it really is strange seeing them, down in 10th now, as you say, 6 in all competitions, 4 in the league that they've lost in a row. It's actually a little bit worrying at this point.
Yeah, and they've had some tough tests as well. They lost the game with Plymouth Argyle. They beat Sheffield Wednesday, one of the big teams. They lost to Derby. They lost to Portsmouth as well. They had that midweek defeat at home to Fleetwood as well, and this is Bolton game. I
mean, the Fleetwood one, I think, is the really worrying one of those. But the 3 losses, as you say, against Derby, against Portsmouth, and then again yesterday against Bolton. These are the teams that they're saying they should be able to beat it in terms of their goals as a club, and so I'd be starting to ask a few questions about what's going wrong, and something needs to change in the way they're approaching these matches. They don't look confident enough.
I think the interesting thing I would probably point out when it comes to Peterborough is if you look at some of the teams that so if I say I think there's probably 4 or 5 teams that can compete for automatic promotion this season. I think it'll be Ipswich, Portsmouth, Argyle, Wednesday and Bolton in the mix. I think for each of those teams, they've got a strong midfield that's capable of running games. So if you look at Portsmouth, you've got Marlon Pack. If you look at Ipswich, you've got Sam Morsey and Lee Evans. If you've got Argyle, you've got John Houghton or Finn Azaz. Sheffield Wednesday have got Barry Bannon. Bolton have got this incredible plethora of midfielders. When it comes to Peterborough, are they really running games in midfield?
They're not, are they? They're you're right. They're very weak in midfield, and they seem to be almost bypassing them because they've got this really strong top 3. They change it a little bit week on week, but they've got a really strong attacking lineup, but don't seem to be making the most of the midfield. You are absolutely right, Gab.
2 more games to run through in League One before we wrap this division up. Accrington Stanley 1, Cheltenham Town 0. A goal inside 30 seconds here, that's proved the only goal of the game from Sean McConville. A deep throw in that was slicked on, ball worked across to McConville for a goal inside less than half a minute. It ended up being the only goal of the game. There was a chance to Harvey Rogers, Accrington, Ryan Broom had a shot wide. Cheltenham couldn't grab an equaliser and Accrington got the win. And a 1-1 draw between Fleetwood Town and Charlton Athletic. Ben Garner absent from this game after testing positive to COVID. Harvey McAdam across the Mims found Callum Morton to Fleetwood's opener. Blackett Taylor had a shot that crashed off the bar. Mandela Egbo had a chance to Charlton that crashed back off the post as well. Sub Miles Leeburn ultimately grabbing equaliser to Charlton to earn a point. Fleetwood, I think, have looked better than I thought they would be. I've got to say they've looked competitive in this league certainly, but it's a point.
I'm going to take a bit of because seeing as you had to go at me for my MK Dons prediction, Ed,
oh, here we go.
I'm going to take a bit of credit because I said Fleetwood would finish in the top half, and that was a brave prediction at the time because they'd just had 40 points and been incredibly lucky to stay up last season. But so far, it's actually not looking too bad, and I think Scott Brown seems to be getting it right at the moment.
I can hear the smugness in your voice already. League One table I'm going to run through very quickly. We'll go with full depth from next week. Ipswich Town lead the way still, 21 points from a possible 27. They're still unbeaten. Port's still unbeaten. They've got the same 21 points, but slightly weaker goal difference. Plymouth Argyle, Sheffield Wednesday, Bolton Wanderers and Barnsley wrap up the player places. Derby County just outside on goal difference. down the bottom. Burton Albion still bottom of the table, 4 points from a possible 9 games, but that win is going to help them a lot, as it will for Morecambe as well, who picked up the first victory at Forest Green. They're in 23rd. Forest Green and Bristol Rovers wrap up the current bottom four. Let's drop down and take a look at the world's best fourth tier. And please let me get all 12 games this time. Do not let me forget it.
League 2.
Right. Chris, let's kick it off at Valley Parade with a really eye-catching result for me. Bradford City 3, Stevenage 0.
Yeah, I mean, this is another fantastic performance from Andy Cook, who's extended his goal-scoring record now to 11 in all competitions, which is just fantastic. And playing at Bradford, I mean, I've said it before, but it really is fantastic to see 17,000 fans in a stadium in the 4th Division. In no other place on the planet would you get that. And it was a really exciting game. I mean, I think it would be wrong to say that 3-0 flatters Bradford because they were very clinical, but I think it also sort of concurrently is a little bit harsh on Stevenage if that sort of somehow adds up. Because actually I thought they started well. They pressed really well, Stevenage. They had a couple of really good first half chances. James Woden, Pejiani and Morris all coming quite close. And it was really the second goal from Cook in the second half that I think killed off the game a bit. Bradford were obviously strong in that 1-0 lead, but once that second went in, it really did just sort of start to finish it off, I think, for Stevenage. And then, of course, a third goal in the 62nd minute from Tyreek Wright made it, all but impossible for Stevenage to come back. I don't think they have to be too disheartened with this, and I think Bradford will come away with this feeling quietly confident about the way they're setting up, playing really exciting football. I mean, I like this midfield. They're sort of playing a 4-2-4 almost. Gilead and Smallwood, I think, are linking up really well in that two central positions. And then you've got Wright, Chapman and Banks that started yesterday in that 3 behind Cook. They look like a really exciting attacking team.
They do. I think the only blip on their game yesterday was probably that really unnecessary second yellow card to Brad Halliday.
Yeah,
he didn't feel necessary to have that. He's got 2 yellows. He's off. They were without Ramoni Critchlow yesterday, actually, who's been really good for them in the centre of defence. They had Timmy Onasina playing there. Without Liam Rydell for a little period as well. They've had Matty Thord playing out at the back. So the back line's going to look a little bit different maybe in the upcoming games to what it has been consistently for the Thor. But that trio behind Cook and the red-hot form that Cook is in is incredible. I really like Scott Banks off the right as well.
Yeah.
Gab, Bradford, can't really say anything bad about them at the moment, can you really?
No, I think the interesting thing about Bradford is Andy Cook that you mentioned there, and I think maybe before the season, it's easy to say now that he's a top 7 striker comfortably, and he's in form and one of the best strikers in the league, arguably. But I think actually before the season, a lot of Bradford fans were saying, not all Bradford fans, by the way, were in favour of Cook staying on or being sort of the first choice striker, partly because of the injury issues, maybe partly because one or two questioned whether he was good enough. But I think under the management of Mark Hughes, it's proving that he's more than good enough. And I am going to blow my own trumpet a little bit here again, because I've always been on the side of, and there's tweets that prove this, I've always been on the side of pro Andy Cook, that he would come good, even when a few people were maybe questioning him. But he's a good hold-up striker. He's a goal scorer as well. He works incredibly hard for the team, but he's got the support as well, because Smallwood, Gilead, Banks, Chapman and Wright, they're all players who can bring something in the creative side of things. And when you add Platt and Adusina, 2 very talented centre-backs into the mix, Bradford's starting to come to the boil.
Newport County 0, Barrow 2. Running out of words, really, to describe how Barrow are doing really at the start of this season. A pair of goals to Josh Gordon. Weirdly, a game where Ben Whitfield hasn't had a goal or assist, which is quite a rarity for them at the minute. He's had such a huge percentage of the goals so far. But Josh Gordon, continuing his phenomenal start to the season, he's well on track to record his best goal-scoring season ever, which I believe was at Walsall a few years ago now. He's in fantastic form for them. Gab, we've said everything we possibly can, really, about Barrow at the start of the season, so I'd like to pick your brains on this team, please, under Pete Wild.
Yeah, I've seen Barrow a couple of times, and I think the thing that stands out is they're very good in the opportunistic elements of their attacking play. And what I mean by that is they're very good if you can, they press very well, they can turn the ball over in the opposing half, and they just like to get a shot away very quickly from that. And I think that, they're very quick to strike on the opposition when they're at the most vulnerable. And I think that's a big part of how they've been able to get their results. I'd be a little bit concerned about Barrow, maybe if they start to face some teams that aren't quite so error prone, or maybe the teams that are a little bit better at defending set pieces, because that's when I think they'd need to show more in terms of creativity from outside the box, or have a bit more of a focal point, because I don't think Whitfield, Gordon or Kay are strikers that you can necessarily go long to. They've obviously got David Moyo in there, who's a little bit more physical. How good is he going to be? I think we're going to find out as the season progresses. So are Barrow a serious automatic promotion contender? For me, it's too early to say that. But what I will say is that they look like they've improved tenfold on what they produced last season. For a club that's been 20th and 22nd in their first seasons in the EFL since the 1980s, I think they've made extraordinary progress under a very good young manager. They've got a very resolute element to their defence. They're incredibly competitive, always consistent in midfield in terms of that competitive element. And McClelland and Canavan defend the box well. So great start for them. Still one or two things, bits and pieces to prove to me if we're holding them to incredibly high standards. But I think they can, at the same time, they can be really proud of what they've produced so far. And I'm looking forward to seeing how the rest of the season goes for them.
I noticed Pete Wild signed a new long-term deal earlier week, around the same time that John Sheridan announced his resignation.
And the convenience of that is?
It was a light-hearted joke amongst Oldham fans, because everyone kept going, "Oh, we need to get Pete Wild back."
I don't think it's going Oldham anytime soon, to be honest.
No, I don't think so.
I quite like that Barrow able to put a very consistent 11 out as well. They've had a lot of success with keeping people fit. I mean, Patrick Bross not available at the moment, so it's been Miles Kenlock playing at left back, but apart from that, you're still able to play Canavan and McClellan at the centre back positions. Tyrrell Warren's been great on the right, and you can play that midfield three of Robbie Gotts, Sam Tholey and Harris O'Neill, who have been superb on the front line, and Barrow can do no wrong at the moment. They've been great. Another team in the top three now, Chris, are Northampton Town, who beat Rochdale 3-0 yesterday.
Yeah, I mean, it's a bit unfair pitting these two together in the same league at the moment, because they are just worlds apart from each other, it feels like. I mean, Guthrie opened the scoring for Northampton right before first half, and it was a bit of a beauty, wasn't it? Have you seen this one? It was outside the penalty area, and it just sort of.
Are you sure he's a centre back?
No, I'm not. I mean, that was. I mean, if you saw David Beckham come out with this in his prime, you wouldn't be questioning it. It was really impressive, and this followed after a sort of a good first 20-30 minutes from Rochdale, but they continue to have the same errors, and it's really frustrating. I mean, they've certainly improved under Jim Bentley, but they still look leaky at the back. They still back down far too easily when they're pressed, and that was sort of. You saw that in the second half when they gave away this penalty. Sam Hoskins first got the first goal, and then was given the chance to get a second from the penalty. And it was a really, really silly foul from Rochdale. One of the worst penalties I've ever seen taken. It was a really, really poor one that was saved well by O'Donnell, and then I think headed back in from Hoskins.
I don't know the mindset of a goalkeeper, but when you save a penalty and it rebounds straight back to the taker, you must be furious with yourself.
Yeah, because he probably should have held it as well. It's a really weak penalty. I mean, I will never have a goalkeeper for saving a penalty, but I mean, Northampton just looked a total class above them. That was it. They won 3-0, and I didn't think they looked like they'd really broken a sweat.
Yeah, exceptional from the Cobblers. Really pleasantly surprised to see Ben Fox back in the squad and on the pitch. In fact, more than pleasantly surprised, because I wasn't expecting him back for months, to be honest with you, with the injury news he had. That might have required
could you see his potential when he was at Burton, Ed?
Oh, yeah. I was always gutted that he left, Gav, I've got to say. But Ben Fox, I really wasn't expecting him back. I mean, Ben, you've always been known for your excellent fitness, but that is some superhuman recovery to come back fit after supposedly not being out till the start of next year.
What was his injury?
Team. I can't remember the injury, but there was talk about it needing an operation. People were saying it was going to be 5 to 6 months out, and he was back on the pitch yesterday, playing a real big part for them. 2 goals to Sam Hoskins. He's got 10 in 9 league games now. He got 13 last season. He's having a phenomenal season for the Cobblers, leading the league at the minute for goals, and has fired Cobblers up into the top 3 with a great win over Rochdale. The team still leading the way, though, to no one's surprise, is Leyton Orient, who got a 1-0 win over Walsall. They were tested a bit for this as well. A drive from Isaac Hutchinson from long range that was saved by Lawrence Vigouroux. Real Satirio was denied after being fouled with an excellent incisive pass. But Leyton Orient got the goal in the second half through their centre-back Omar Beckles bundling the ball in just before the hour. Gab, a bit like with Barrow, we've run out of things to say about Orient, really. They've started the season with 25 points from a possible 27. The Forest Green team last year that dominated the first half of League Two had 20 points at this stage. There's 3 teams in this league that currently have the same points as, or more than them. Barrow got 21, Northampton have got 20. But this Orient team is just exceptional at the moment.
Yeah, it's been an incredible first couple of months of the season for them. I think the interesting thing is that in not all of those games they've necessarily sort of outplayed the opposition. I think a lot of the games in August, you'd probably say they won it through clinical, incisive final third play, as opposed to actually sort of running games outright. But I think when you've got the likes of Paul Smythe, who I'm a huge fan of, Charlie Kelman and Real Satirio, full 3 forwards are full of running and so dangerous in transition. That's obviously a huge boost for them. And then you've got Theo Archibald, who's such a good ball carrier coming off the bench. You've got Aaron Drinnan, who was one of the best forwards in the division. Let's not forget this time last year. That's such a strong sort of indication of their depth. El Mazzuni as well, who's I know very highly rated at Ipswich. Him and Moncur are probably the ones that they're hoping can sort of bring that creative output. And then you've got Dan Happy in defence. He's really bossing it.
I have never worked out how to pronounce his name. Is it Hap? Is it Happy? Is it Happer? I have never worked out.
Yeah, possibly Happer. Yeah.
I have no idea. I've never known. I've heard so many different opinions on it.
Yeah, I can't enlighten you there.
Fair enough. Jaden Sweeney playing at left back as well. They have Rob Hunt absent for a couple of games, but I mean, Rob Hunt and Tom James is a phenomenal pair of fullbacks to have, and we've seen what Rob Hunt did with Rich Wellens at Swindon a while back.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's and that shows Wellens can sort of adapt to the squad that he's got available, because you're not always going to have exactly what you want. I think for this summer it was they only released like 4 players, didn't they, Leyton Orient? So there wasn't an awful lot of scope to bring lots of players in the same way that other managers have been able to completely overhaul their squad. So I think Richie Wellens has had to be sensible at Orient so far and get the best out of existing personnel. But no, very impressive work so far from Orient, and probably you'd say Lawrence Vigouroux wasn't quite so busy. He made a crucial save at Rochdale the Tuesday before, but today probably not that busy. So that suggests Orient deserve their win, and what a start for them.
Orient all conquering at the moment, still unbeaten, the only team in the fourth is still left unbeaten. Almost a perfect record, so they can do no wrong right now. David, deep breath, shoulders back, Gillingham 0, Mansfield Town 2.
Yeah, first time these two faced off in, I think it was about 27 years. I think it was January 1996, the year of my birth, was the last time these two teams faced off, and Gills ran out 2-0 victors. It's a shame this wasn't the scoreline yesterday. What can I say? Fantastic from a Mansfield perspective. Fantastic win for them. Fully deserved. Pressed Gillingham for 90 minutes on their home turf. Made them look silly, really. Quite embarrassing from my own perspective. Mansfield taking the lead from a Lucas Akins shot, which, to be quite honest with you, I can only describe as an acrobatic volley jump thing.
That is a classic Lucas Akins. I've got to say, he does. He has an interesting way of jumping, I think.
I don't know how else to describe it. So acrobatic volley jump thing is how I'm going to describe it.
Fair enough. Yeah, there's the title, acrobatic volley jump thing.
If anyone listening isn't sure what I'm talking about, go and watch the highlights. But just before the half hour mark, Mansfield won a penalty, subsequently saved by Glenn Morris. Quite a poor penalty, decent save to it. Didn't really make any difference. So 4 minutes later, George Lapsley was sent on his way by a lovely ball through from Anthony Hartigan, double the visitors league, completed a dominant performance. What can I say? They were just quite embarrassing from a Gillingham perspective overall. Neil Harris got it spot on post-match, second best across the pitch throughout the whole game. It's very difficult to disagree with that. Gillingham completely lacking organisation. For me, it was the wrong starting 11 to put out in this team. I would have probably, if it was me in his position, I probably would have put out a similar, if not the same team from Tuesday, and worked off of that momentum. But yeah, I mean, there's still faith in Harris, but something's got to give soon. I mean, there is quality in this squad. I don't think this squad is without quality at all. It's about unlocking that quality. We're not without a decent amount of players, and there's still a number of players that have either League One experience or were playing in League One with us last year. Sure, that didn't go the best, but it was, I would expect, hopefully, or I'm hopeful, that there will be more of an output from this team, but I think I might be holding my breath on that one.
I mean, don't worry too much because Dorking's only down the road.
Thanks.
Maidstone in the same county.
Yeah, exactly.
These two last play each other.
I can't. Probably in a friendly. We play friendlies with them all the time, but you don't. You don't want to play Maidstone in a league game.
I've broken him.
I don't want to be Oldham. I just don't want to do it. Two relegations on the bounce after I've joined this pod cannot happen. It just cannot happen.
Jez won't have you blaming the pod. He won't be standing for that.
To be fair, even Oldham didn't do 2 relegations on the bounce.
No,
one season in the middle. 2 seasons in the middle.
I thought it was 3 seasons. Because he went down in 2017 and then...
I won't lie to you, Gabe. I've blocked out most of the last 4 years.
I don't think Oldham were this cataclysmic when they came down either, to be fair.
No, we did all right.
At least Haji Manoga lasted the full game this time.
Well, sure. That's one plus. He lasted.
You're grasping at straws there, right?
Sure. He lasted 79 minutes longer than he did last time.
Yeah, win for Mansfield. Lucas Akins with the acrobatic volley jump thing that he did, and had a penalty saved by Glenn Morris. So there's another positive for you, because I know I said last week that Lucas Akins does what Lucas Akins does best and scores penalties, and then he follows up with his following one by having it saved. Typical. Thanks, Lucas. But he's going well for Mansfield, and Mansfield are going well indeed as well. David, another win to talk about, another 2-0. This one for the home side. Sutton United 2, Hartlepool United 0.
Yeah, I mean, this one's a fixture with plenty of good memories, especially for Matt Gray. And I suppose for Sutton in general, really. Matt Gray's first win came against Hartlepool, and then Sutton were promoted 2 seasons ago after beating Hartlepool as well. So definitely a good memory in the mind of Matt Gray, and it doesn't seem to have changed in this one either. From a Hartlepool perspective, it was a bit more of the same that's been so far this season. 18 matches in the league. Well, from what I understand, it's 18 matches now without a win. Not really the run you want to be on. Donovan Wilson setting up Will Randall Horan for a very easy tap in.
He's having a great season so far, by the way.
Gab, there's a Will Randall fan club that I've founded. I hope you're joining it. I love this guy, honestly.
Yeah, I'm pretty close to joining it. Just sort out some contractual details. I'm sure we'll do something.
I think we have to do a loan with an option to buy for that, to be honest.
Oh, right. Well, getting back into the game, lads. So it wasn't until the second half when there was another goal. A very lovely header from Harry Buterman. One might even say it was a beauty for Harry Buterman. I know.
You've got to come up with some original material, David.
I just want to end this call right now. Honestly.
But yeah, all in all, very, very good for Sutton. But really, lads, how are we feeling about Hartlepool? That's now 18 matches without a win. Not looking great for them. They could have opened up the scoring here. Bit unfortunate in that respect. But for the most part, not really going to plan, is it?
I don't really understand why David Ferguson's been benched. I don't know if there's a reason for that. They would go with Brodie Patterson and Regan Tamilty. Now, Jamie Sterry's had a bit of an injury problem, which is fine. That made you play Tamilty out on the right-hand side. But Brodie Patterson, I don't really consider the same level as David Ferguson in a wing-back role. And I don't really get why Ferguson's on the bench at the moment. What's Paul Hartley seeing in that? Gab, I mean, Hartlepool, it's dire, really, at the minute for them, isn't it?
It doesn't look good, does it, Ed, for them? I think you'd question whether the recruitment in the summer was good enough. I feel a little bit sort of... I thought Hartlepool would actually do better than people thought before the season. So I think I put them something like 12th. And I think I put a lot of stock in the fact Paul Hartley had won 2 promotions in 3 seasons with Cove Rangers. And there was part of me that thinking, I'm putting enough in this. But actually, I think with a bit of hindsight and with sort of talking to people, maybe that had a lot to do with having, by far the biggest budget in both promotion seasons. So, perhaps that was quite a significant one there, and maybe working with resources that aren't quite so favourable, he's finding it a lot more difficult. I think, that's the way for Hartlepool. He's made some decisions that a lot of natives have questioned. Certain players have been left out of the team. Tom Crawford earlier in the season was left out when a lot of people were hoping for him to start. Now David Ferguson's the one that's on the bench. It's a little bit worrying for Hartlepool, and as things go at the moment, I'll be fearing for their EFL status.
Yeah, the positive to me with them is Josh Romero. I think has stepped up quite well from Nash League after a good spell at Wilston. They got in Chris Maguire. Now, we know what Chris Maguire can do, but I think, as you have with Chris Maguire now, is the question of what Chris Maguire are Hartlepool going to get? Can he stay consistently fit? Can he stay consistently motivated?
Is he what they need in a dogfight as well, Ed?
Yeah, as well. I think we know what the quality he possesses, Gab, and that's why you look at it and think on paper this could be fantastic, but is that commitment there from him?
Yeah, well, this is the thing. So I think when you're in a dogfight and when you've got 4 points from your first 9 games and you're in the relegation zone, what you need is an absolute battler. You need a leader, someone that's going to head a meteor away or put a challenge in, or do you know what I mean? Just get everyone together, and you need that sort of character. And what Chris Maguire has been in his career is a very enigmatic figure, somebody that you don't quite know what you're going to get one week to the next. He had a brilliant season for Oxford, so James Richards, the podcast from D3D4, would probably say this is blasphemy, but you don't always know what you're going to get from Chris Maguire in terms of that work rate. And I think coming into a dogfight, is he a great player at League 2 level technically? Yes, and he could make a real difference, but I'm still not sure he's exactly the type of thing Hartlepool need for where they are right now.
Yeah, indeed. David, let's focus on a couple of northern teams who had good weekends, actually, starting with Carlisle United, who beat ASC Wimbledon 2-1.
Yeah, and for me, the big talking point in this game was Callum Guy. Featured 99 times for Carlisle and hadn't scored a single goal, comes into this one and scores an absolutely fantastic curling shot into the top corner.
Where's that been, Callum? Where's that been?
Like, imagine playing 99 times, not scoring, and then pulling out a blinder like that. Someone's definitely been working on the training ground in the last week. It's just, brilliant. Bit of controversy in this game, so a number of talking points, really. But, boys, Chris Gunter, does he use his arm to block the ball, or is it Amari Patrick that's hitting it against his arm? Like, I'm not sure. Penalty or not?
Well, it's his hand, doesn't it?
Well, it does, but for me, it almost looked like Amari Patrick was sort of aiming it towards his hand. Yes, his arm's in an unnatural position, but it's almost...
It doesn't matter if you aim it towards it. If the hand's in an unnatural position, then that's it, right?
I don't know what is and isn't handball anymore, to be honest.
It's a hard one to gauge,
so
isn't it?
Complex
because
to me.
I'll send it to my brother. He's a referee. We'll get to the bottom of this.
We'll have a verdict in an hour or so out on Twitter, I'm sure. But yeah, moving on from this, I mean, Wimbledon kind of got back into this very Route 1 stuff. Josh Davison had a looping header, sent it over the top of the Wimbledon defence to Oyo Basal for the equaliser and his first goal of the season. Then Christian Dennis was back at it again. Another goal, headed assist from Jack Armour, and that makes it Carlisle win, but also 4 defeats in a row for Wimbledon.
It's gone flat for Dons, certainly. It's not going great for them at the minute. I mean, Riley Towell's been part of the backline instead of Will Nightingale. They didn't have Nathan Young-Coombs yesterday in the team. For them, it's don't quite understand what's happened with Wimbledon really, but they've certainly tailed off. But Carlisle continuing very good form, especially fine personal form for Christian Dennis. And it's interesting because if you told me a Carlisle striker was going to hit fine form, I probably would have gone with Patrick, not him. But he's really benefiting from being part of that front line. And Carlisle, I think, when fully fit, could do pretty good, Gab.
Well, yeah, I was just going to go on to that, Ed, because Carlisle are getting some really competitive results with the squad that they've got available. 13 points from 8 games is a more than solid return, and what is it? A sort of 10th best points per game record in the league. So that's really solid. I think first 11, I'm not sure that many of the additions to come back will make a massive difference to the first 11, but I think in terms of what they can offer on the bench and how they can change games, I think that's something that will really excite Paul Simpson. So you got Brennan Dickinson to come back, 1-2 players like that could make a difference to the depth of the squad. So a lot of excitement from that perspective.
It's Dickinson and Charlton are quite to see come back because Jack Armour basically has to play at the minute on that left-hand side. There isn't really anyone else that can go there. But that midfield three for me, to Carlisle.
Yeah, Ryan Edmondson as well.
Ryan Edmondson is another option at top Sunday, but that midfield three to Carlisle, Jordan Gibson, Owen Mox and Callum Guy. Good trio, very good. And a good win for Carlisle. A win away from home for a northern side. Grimsby Town went to Colchester United and won 1-0. There were some chances before the goal came. Gavin Holohan and Atherton Range was denied by Kieran O'Hara. There was a direct pass over the top from Colchester that found Kwesi Appiah, but he couldn't get past Max Crocombe. Lewis Richardson had a go from range from Grimsby Town, but Kieran O'Hara denied him there. The game was decided after an hour. Through ball finding Harry Clifton, who brilliantly lifted the ball over Kieran O'Hara, who was off his line. Colyu came very close to an equaliser late on as the Lubala header was put wide. Gab, I imagine you're going to be allowed to be smug again because you were quite optimistic about Grimsby at the start of the season. I'll tell you what, they look very good right now.
I put them in the playoffs, which was probably quite a surprising call given that they made the playoffs of the National League last season. But I think for me, it's just the structure at Grimsby Town. It's the ownership regime led by Jason Stockwood. I think they've got just such a good structure in place that it allows Paul Hurst just to focus on what he does best, which is, for me, as a tactician, developing individual plans to counter opponents. And I think what we've seen from Grimsby so far this season is they've not gone all out for the victories in the first half of their games. They've generally kept it pretty solid, but then that's given themselves a platform to really grow into it. And Andy Smith on loan from Hull City is absolutely outstanding. He's made himself a real hit in Cleethorpes. Anthony Driscoll-Glennon from Burnley as well has been fantastic for them at left back as well. So Grimsby have been really solid, and I see them keeping a lot of clean sheets this season. I think they're finishing in the playoffs.
Very annoying because you just mentioned the exact two players I was going to bring up then. Driscoll-Glennon and Andy Smith.
I did that on purpose.
You need to get out of my head. Yeah, going through a thought or two recently, I think Smith's on such a good partnership with the Hawthorn, which extends back to last season National League. Driscoll-Glennon to me is one of the best fullbacks in the league right now. Really, really good players. Sometimes been operated further forwards as well because of his ability off the left-hand side. Harry Clifton, one of their own, getting the goal. Brilliant for them as well. Partnership of Lewis Richardson and Ryan Taylor up top. And even with this long-term injury to John McAtee, which could have helped them, Grimsby looking very good right now.
Well, also, just on that, Ed, like when John McAtee got injured last season, it meant that their National League form really dropped off. Whereas this year, they still look a really good League Two side, even without arguably the best player in the squad.
Well, I think that's because they've added a third option, haven't they? They got in Lewis Richardson, Kendra Simmons. I don't know if you've seen anything to Blues, Gab, what they could expect from him.
Yeah, he's a very bright, creative forward, sort of plays between the lines as well, so he'll not want to feed off a main focal point. The other lad that's impressed me for Grimsby as well is Stephen Wern. He's not started many games. He didn't even come off the bench yesterday, but he's I think when you've got Harry Clifton, who's such a workhorse, he's like the James Milner. You know, sometimes Hurst will want to bring on someone a bit more explosive, a bit more direct to kind of open the game up, and I think Wern's Byrne's capable of doing that, so he's someone that's impressed me. And then you got 4 really good centre-backs in there as well. So I love the depth of this Grimsby Town squad, and I think they could be ones to watch. I really do.
Yeah, Danilo also returned to fitness, and Almeida returned to fitness as a centre-back option as well. Grimsby going very good right now, certainly. Chris, Salford City 0, Tranmere Rovers 1.
This was a weird one, because Salford had 75% of the possession, which is
They
bonkers.
are league dominating the possession, I've got to say, under Neil Wood. They do lead the league for that.
But I've found a heat map here, and basically all of the touches are in their own half. And it was really interesting watching the highlights, watching how Tranmere dealt with it, because basically they let Salford mess around with it. I was trying to find a podcast-friendly phrase there. And just picked up possession when they could and attacked really, really quickly. And you see this for Hawks' goal. They just pick out possession, have a few really nice passes, attack really quickly, and got the goal. And they did this several times throughout the match. Salford their way of approaching the match was just really strange, and it was really, really ineffective against Tranmere, who were quite happy to let them pass it about and take advantage when they couldn't. They've come away with the 3 points yesterday, and it worked really well for them.
Very handy 3 points to Tranmere, because I've found them very inconsistent really in terms of their setup and indeed their form as well. They got with a 4-4-2 yesterday. Josh Hawkes and Reece Hughes deployed out wide.
They look to have a match plan and stuck to it, even when, Salford perhaps weren't playing how they expected them to. They went out with their plan, stuck to it, and got the win. And that's what you need to do, especially away from home.
They did get the win. It's an important one for them against the Salford side that started the season well, certainly. 2 games to wrap up before we wrap up this episode. Doncaster Rovers 0, Swindon Town 1. One single shot in the first half in this game at the Eco Power Stadium for Ronan Darcy to Swindon that didn't end up going in. Darcy had another shot in the second half that tested Jonathan Mitchell at half time. Jacob Wakeling ultimately got the goal to Swindon Town. He's had some nice personal form to himself. He latched onto a cross to grab the only goal of the game here. And Jonathan Mitchell had to be called upon again to tip over a long-range Johnny Williams effort. Williams is one of those players.
You sound like a racehorse commentator there, Ed.
I'm pushing myself the time. I don't want this to go on for so long. And
well, we need to go off now to discuss his way of speaking.
Three straight. No, I'm not going to slow down. 3 straight Doncaster Rovers defeats. Johnny Williams is an interesting one. We've also got a World Cup on the horizon now. There's a very good chance he's going to be in the World squad for that. So Swindon are going to have a period without him as well. I think there's a chance Chris Gunter might go as well out of the AFC Wimbledon squad to add to that experience to them. So there's going to be a couple of players leaving for the World Cup, I imagine, this winter, which could have an impact on some of the clubs in League One and League Two, certainly, particularly for the Welsh squad. Crewe Alexandra 1, Crawley Town 0. James Tilley went down under a Rod McDonald challenge, no penalty given though. Cohen Miller had a header that went onto the post. Corey Adai called upon to deny Courtney Baker Richardson, but it would be Baker Richardson who ultimately got the goal as Eli King won possession, slipped him through to grab the decisive goal in the 73rd minute that gave Crewe Alexandra the win. And finally, Stockport County 0, Harrogate Town 0. Chances, loads of chances to Stockport County from Carl Wooten. Pete Jameson called upon to deny Sarcevic from point blank range. Harrogate kept on surviving as Ollie Crankshaw hit the bar. Harrogate are on a long run without an open play goal. David, do you know when the last goal from open play was?
Against Gillingham.
It was against Gillingham. Just thought I'd leave that in there just to finish.
And on that bombshell.
And on that bombshell, it's time to go through the table. Leyton Orient obviously lead the way, 25 points from possible 27. Great start for them. Barrow in second, 21 points. Northampton third, 20. Playoffs currently wrapped up by Stevenage, Bradford City, Salford City and Mansfield Town. Grimsby Town and Crewe Alexandra both outside by the margin of just a point. Grimsby still have that game in hand, by the way, on everyone else. They've still got to play Carlisle, so plenty to get excited about with them. The bottom two, Rochdale still without a win, 2 points from 9 games. Hartlepool United also without a win, 4 points from 9 games. And then you have Gillingham and Colchester and Crawley Town on 6, just outside of it. That's going to wrap up this episode. It's been a long one. I've mixed up my order, so I've got quite a bit of editing to do after this, but David, Chris, Gab, thank you very much for your input today.
Cheers,
yeah, it's been a pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, it's good fun, that.
Good to have you, Gav. Really enjoy always having your input when you're available to come on. We will see you next week for more on the world's best third and fourth tiers. We'll see you then. Goodbye. I have messed up that. I can't believe I missed Port Royal.
That's the sound. You need to soundbite. Just that sound.
I might leave that in. I might leave that in whilst the background music, while the end music's playing. Just that in at the end.